But I was thinking that by the year 2100, my children might not be able to live in the house that I have. My grandchildren wouldn't be able to live in the house that I have right now. And we've got to do something pretty quickly. So that's part of the reason why I'm here doing this.
We're in Norfolk. We're one of the three cities that really is at risk for some very serious sea level rise, and everyone's situation is going to change here over the next 30 or 40 years. Some people are going to probably lose their homes altogether, and I'm concerned about, just basic economic things in some respects. The value of my house. Am I going to have to leave my house, move to higher ground? Mm-hmm. I really love living in Norfolk. I've been here since 1980. I'm not a native, but I'm starting to feel like one after a while. And I don't want to have to leave here, but I want to see that something's being done, that our government is really getting serious about what's happening here. I feel like the economy is at risk if we're not doing something really big. I can't imagine any company wanting to come here knowing that there's going to be this kind of serious flooding that's going to continue to escalate. Why would you want to make an investment in a city that isn't making an investment in itself? And I do feel like we have to really look out for the whole nation as a whole, in that this is the largest naval base in the world, and there are people's jobs that we have to be concerned about in the military and just our whole national security. If they have to leave here because of the sea level rising, that's not good for anybody. Not us here regionally, and not us. It's not good for us nationally either to have to make that kind of a major adjustment. So I just hope that we can see our government making some major steps to do some big projects. So.
Well, for me, it's about the kids. Again, I have 4 kids, and we are leaving the area in about 5 years, going back to Oklahoma, where all the tornadoes are, and wildfires now. So it's not even about, do we leave this area and leave the flooding, because the next area we go into is also affected. The whole country is essentially affected. And my kids are already at 14 deciding not to have kids.
Wow.
As I said, what's the point? They don't know what the future is going to look like, or if there's even going to be a future to bring kids into. It affects my mental health, so I have to be doing something about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like I'm helpless. So that's why I'm doing this.
So I'm sort of like Kim. We have a house on the water, and my kids are grown and out of the house, but I want them to be able to come back and see me, and I want to be the grandma that people can come back and hang at the house. And with the way the flooding is, there's already streets that you can't get into our house at high tide, let alone if it's a storm. And I want to have that home and be able to see my grandkids in that home. And I think currently we are trashing the planet in so many ways. We're destroying the soil with our farming practices. We're destroying the air with how we're making energy. And I read a lot, and there are so many things we could be doing differently so easily that just aren't being done. And a lot of them would benefit. I do a lot of work in low-income communities and communities of color, and they need the jobs. They are paying too much for energy bills, and all the things we could do, like putting in solar, putting up wind, can give jobs to those communities and solve so many problems at the same time. And it just feels like the current political situation just flat out keeps any of that from happening. Large companies are dumping huge amounts of money into the political system so they can keep the status quo. The status quo keeps those companies really happy, but it doesn't do anything for the people and the people's lives and what they're experiencing in terms of wildlife and flooding and their everyday life and traffic and everything else is just getting worse. And so I would love to see something happen, like you said, meaningful, large action by our government to start to make things better, because it seems like it's so possible and it's just not happening.
My son was talking about solar, like he maybe becoming a solar panel installer. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
do that. You can do that.
Yeah, my older son is 23 and he's working for a solar company right now in California, and it's really exciting for me to see my kids having the hope that things can get better and working toward that.
Yeah, great.
You might have to start cheating, so he's got a while to go.
Yes, you can't expect him to go hop off and get a job.
But he's looking into the renewable energy sector for potential jobs, and I think that's the way jobs are going to go.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
So we have to have the jobs available.
Well, I don't know, maybe I should have a disclaimer, because my son is in the business as well, but he's a banker and he loans money to renewable energy projects, and that's hearing what's going on, I think, in the plain states and how much energy we're producing out there, that has made me hopeful. And Texas and Kansas are two of the biggest, wind producers. Interestingly enough, I think Texas, which you always think of as an oil state, is really, really a big producer of wind. And I had a conversation with my son over the holidays, and we were talking about it. He said they cannot get enough people, enough wind turbine technicians in the state of Texas. They're desperate for people to come and work there. So that just makes me hopeful that the jobs are there. I feel like the jobs are there. We just have to provide the opportunity in this state for those jobs to proliferate. And I'm hoping that the Green New Deal is going to make a big difference from the kind of wind investment we're going to get here in Virginia. And he had mentioned too about Kansas. Right now has 36% of all their energy is coming from wind, and they're selling it to other states.
Yeah. So it could be an income stream for us.
That's
yes,
right.
And it was said that they have enough potential to generate $290 billion worth of energy just in that one state.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously the Midwest is different than Virginia, because they are sort of in the, whatever you call it, wind tunnel.
Yeah, but if you look at the offshore wind,
Yes.
I mean, the offshore wind on the East Coast is enough to supply the entire country 3 times over. So think of the revenue to Virginia and all the states on the East Coast if we can be the ones putting that in. And specifically for Norfolk, if they put offshore wind here and our port is the one where they're bringing in the turbines, shipping them out, what great jobs for the people here and the businesses here. I'm working with a welding company right now, and they would be very excited if they can start making some of the parts and doing repairs for the turbines, and they're right here, right next to the port. I mean, that would just be huge for us in terms of jobs.
It makes sense logistically too, so you don't have to be shipping stuff from other states.
Yeah.
Weren't you telling me before that Maryland has a lot more wind and solar, and also North Carolina?
Yeah. So all the states around us have factors of 100 more renewable energy than we do, which is, so Virginia, we got some low-hanging fruit, but we got a long way to go to catch up with everyone else. So I think doing, a bill that has some aggressive goals in it is good, like 100% clean energy coming up really soon, because we have so far to go to catch up with other states.
So it's not like we can't do it. Like Maryland doesn't have more sun or
Yeah.
North Carolina doesn't have more wind. It's just we have to want to do it.
Yeah, it's political will.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, Green New Deal would give us some of that political will, and hopefully would start some of the offshore wind, actually start the construction. One thing I was really angry about, I think it was in 2013, that the lease was sold for this wind at the same time that the one up by Rhode Island was sold. Well, the Rhode Island commercial wind farm is already in operation.
Wow.
They're making electricity, benefiting the state. We don't even have a splinter of steel in the water. So if this can make that happen, that would be huge.
Do you think it could be as big of a boost to the economy as tourism or the Navy or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know we're a big percentage military, but I think in terms of influx of new jobs, I mean, you can look at some of the towns in like Europe that are on the shore where the wind turbines started up a port city, and it would be just a dilapidated town that, used to be in fishing and now nothing's there. And they are completely reinvigorated. I mean, factors of 100 more jobs than there used to be, and people just flooding in and starting new businesses. So I think it could be huge, and that could be a great second strength for this area, because yes, we're strong with the military, but whenever there's a military downturn, it hurts us really badly, because that's a lot of what we have.
Or is it 40% of our economy is through the military?
I think,
It's high, yeah.
and it might be more than that if you include other government besides military. So yeah, we're pretty dependent on the government.
Even like your seamstress that, does hymns, uniforms, and that sort of thing. Like she would lose most of her business. So I mean, we're completely reliant. But also we have our shipbuilding, and I'm thinking, and what do I know? But I'm thinking like if we can do propellers on a boat on a ship, we can do turbines.
Yes.
So I mean, it's a
And
natural.
we have the big barges that can take
That's
them
right.
out. I mean, we have a lot of the infrastructure that's needed.
Yes.
So I'm hoping we would get that.
Yeah, and these are jobs that, are not, well, certainly the wind and solar, the technicians are not jobs that are going to be exported. They're going to be
Right.
jobs that have to be done here. They're not
Yeah.
going to be outsourced somewhere else. So,
And they can be relatively easy to train to get started quickly with, because you don't have to have a 4-year degree to get started installing solar panels or working on, as far as I know, working on wind turbines. TCC already started the solar panel installation program, I believe, which is what my son was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'd be a good mix of blue collar and white collar jobs. And one thing I like about this is it feels like they're addressing a lot of, about the Green New Deal bill, is they're addressing a lot of different issues. They're not just saying install renewable energy. They're saying, at-risk communities are more hit with this. They're addressing climate justice, environmental justice, social justice. They're involving a whole climate plan that would involve agriculture and how we're doing transit, how are we getting around, how are we building so that it makes sense. Don't just build some suburb that has no services and then everyone has to drive 10 miles to go to the dry cleaner or to go to school or the movies, but create communities that are planned where you can bike to everything. Like, I love that they're addressing so many of those factors and not just let's build solar and wind.
and so many stakeholders as well.
Yes.
I think that they're really taking a lot of care to look at who these workers are going to be, how they're going to retrain them, what kind of opportunities they're going to give them for either low interest or non-interest loans to be trained. And they all have to have the opportunity to unionize.
Yes.
And that was very specific in there. And so I feel good about the kind of jobs that we're going to create. I mean, $35,000 to $75,000 a year annual jobs, I think, are competitive with manufacturing jobs that we're losing.
Yes.
And but I personally don't think we're going to get back because of AI. And
I was about to say, how many of them
Yeah.
are automated away?
and I don't think these are jobs that can be turned over to AI. So that it seems like this the renewable energy industry is going to really, I think, create jobs that are going to be long lasting.
Yeah.
And not going to be able to outsource them, and they're not going to be able to be taken over by AI. And they have they pay well.
Yeah.
You know, and already we have more jobs in renewable energy than we have in coal and nuclear right now. And this is still sort of in its infancy.
Yeah.
So I really do think that there could end up being way more jobs in this industry than there are in fossil fuel industry.
Yeah. Well, I have a little small fund that installs solar, and just putting in 5 installs on businesses, we've hired 4 employees from at-risk neighborhoods. So it's first installers of color that we've ever had in Hampton Roads, and just with 5 installs, we've hired 4 people. So that's just tiny. But if you multiply that times thousands, as you put in a lot more solar, that's thousands of people that you can hire and train in this field that's an up-and-coming field. I mean, these are jobs that are going to be really valuable for the future, not, you know, you do this for 6 weeks and then you're done. I mean, it's going to be a learning experience and a job for a lifetime.
Do you think it's the type of job that would lift them out of poverty?
I would hope so. I mean, they're well-paying jobs, and they have a future. I mean, like somebody who is a cashier at Walmart, that job's going to get automated away 2 years from now. So that's not a job that really has a financial future. But yeah, like you said, AI is not going to take over the installation of solar panels. It's not going to take over the repair of wind turbines. So those are jobs that are really viable for the future.
One of the other things I liked is the focus on providing solar in low-income and rural communities. I know that we've been working with several people who have struggled to pay their bills, and if this is also a way to lower their bills, like, I'm all for it.
I agree. And I noticed there was a provision that said 50% of these jobs were to go to people who were in low income, environmental justice communities. So yeah, I mean, I like that it's going to be, everyone's going to have an opportunity to benefit from this. And of course, a lot of the cap and trade and the income that is raised and produced by that, a lot of that money is going to go into communities, environmental justice communities that really deserve to have some mitigation, adaptation work done. So I like that the revenue is going to be fairly distributed to people that are deserving of it.
I have a question about the new infrastructure. No more new fossil fuel infrastructure. Would that put a damper on the proposed pipelines, or are those already counted as the old infrastructure?
I mean, to me, it would put a damper on something like the ACP, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline running through here, because that would be new infrastructure. So depending on, fine points of when the bill came to be valid and where the ACP was at that point. But I really think that would be a valuable part of this bill. I think the Atlantic Coast Pipeline is not a good deal for us. I think it's a great deal for the companies putting it in, but I don't think we need that, and it's really just a profit maker for large companies. And they've already sunk so much money into it that they can't really back away without looking like idiots. So this bill might force them to back away, which I think would be a great step in the right direction. I mean, you can't say that we're going to cut our carbon footprint when you're putting something in that is tying you to fossil fuels for the next 40 years. That just doesn't make any sense. You can't say, oh, I'm going to get greener, I'm going to burn less carbon. Oh, here's a pipeline that's going to bring in natural gas for the next 40 years at larger volumes than we've ever seen.
Natural gas, which is not.
Yes, which is fracked
And it stops
gas.
being natural once it comes above ground. So.
Yeah. which is methane, which is one of our hugest problems. So, yeah, I think that would be a huge part, is no more new fossil fuel infrastructure. It does worry me that they don't have any phase out of the current fossil fuel infrastructure, so it would allow people to keep burning their fossil fuels and just buy renewable energy credits from out of state. I wish it did more to really curb that and to try to tail off all of our fossil fuel building, but I think that would happen naturally. It's so much less expensive now to put in wind and solar.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I think the capitalism will.
Yeah, the power of the market is, yes.
You know, I think the market is dictating what's happening with coal. You know,
Yeah.
it's just too expensive to burn coal.
And as customers, we're demanding more renewable energy.
Right. So, I mean, we're talking about the least expensive energy source. And
The sun is not going to run out. At least for a few billion years.
Yes. Not going to worry about the future of the Earth 2 billion years from now.
yes, and I will add a concern that I have as well. Is just spent my entire life as a nurse, and you know, when Mike asked us about the you know, how we got invested and for how long. You know, I think really always through my whole lifetime as a nurse, it's been of concern to me. The pollution that, you know, we've had to deal with, and the kind of illnesses that people have to deal with, and you look at the cost just to the federal government of people who have been coal miners all their lives, and the government is paying for their health care, for black lung disease, and it's in the, I think since I saw a report that said since 1970 we've paid $40 trillion out in, I mean, so it's been like 50 years, but even so, in health care benefits, and a lot of them also, you know, have to have supplemental income that's tied up with some of that program, because they're just, so there's a disability clause in that, and just to me like the personal suffering of people who work in fossil fuels, and the kind of illnesses that are caused. I had a conversation with somebody when we were up in Richmond last week. We were there that day, but a gentleman said to me, "Well, I don't think people get involved with this unless it affects them personally." And I said, "You know, I don't think people sometimes know how much it affects them personally.
Yeah.
If you go on the FDA website, it said you should only eat 2 servings of fish a week
Because of the mercury.
level of mercury that's in the fish. And if you're a pregnant woman, you shouldn't have
Eat
any
it all.
fish at all. Right. And if you're talking about tuna and mackerel, you should only have 1 serving per month. Now, how many people do you suppose even know that?
Right.
And tuna,
But yes.
cheap for
Yeah.
low-income
Yes,
families to have.
really. So, you know, all that mercury that you're throwing up into the atmosphere, you know, from burning fossil fuels, is ending up in the water. It's ending up in our food sources. It's ending up in the soil. And it does cause neurological problems with developing fetus. And, you know, you can only just hope that all the doctors are telling people that, you know, whatever you do, don't eat any fish. So it's hard to know what people are aware of. But I just think there are just so many health concerns about
You had mentioned about coal miners in those jobs and their health effects, but for many of them, that's probably the only well-paying job in their county. So they don't have a whole lot of choices. And I think that the more we push for renewable energy, they can still power the state just with building solar panels instead of digging for coal. So we're not trying to take a job from someone by any means. It's more like giving them another choice. That's what I like about this bill.
And for health effects, I mean, besides the people who work in fossil fuels, all the people who have asthma now, and it gets worse. I mean, we've paid millions of dollars in additional health care costs because of all the people whose asthma is started or worse because of the fumes from fossil fuel plants. And they don't work in the field. They don't have a family that works in the field. They just happen to live, within 2 miles of a plant, or just breathing the air when you're driving to work. I mean, there's so many things with our current technology that is, like you said, causing illness for people that's not of their choice.
Right. One thing I was surprised to learn recently was the exhaust fumes from the school buses affecting children who ride the bus. And my kids ride the bus every day, and I didn't realize that's making kids sick when we could have renewable energy transportation.
And we're getting a few electric school buses in Virginia, which is very exciting, but maybe this would accelerate that. They're definitely looking at transit, and if you could start to get all the school buses to electric, and that electric is powered by solar at the school, bus parks at the school, it gets charged with the solar, goes out and picks up the kids, no fumes at any time getting into your kid's bus.
And it's an additional source of profit for the schools to sell the electricity back.
Yeah, you can be making money off your rooftop.
So speaking of transportation, there actually is a section in the Green New Deal that does allow for all new residential construction to have electric charger stations in the houses. I don't know if you saw that, which I think that is awesome. And it also says that all new construction, and where feasible, has to be solar. So, and I think, yes, that makes sense to me. Why at this stage of the game would anybody be building anything? It does forbid natural gas to be used in new construction. I don't know if you saw that part too. Which I think they've covered a lot of the bases on this bill, but like you said, there are some things that aren't there, so I don't know what will happen if they will somehow consolidate the two bills to get the best of both worlds.
I think there's a lot of good things in both bills.
Right.
But California already has that new construction has to have solar, and that's working out great. You drive in California, see all these new buildings going up with solar already on the roof. Doesn't even have a buyer yet, and their solar is making power.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is some other, they do address other, transportation issues and how we're going to modify, the transportation to electric, and change the way we're doing business with getting around. I'm really optimistic. I'm hoping that the thing will pretty much be, adopted with all of the provisions that are in it. People won't be cutting out certain things. I suppose we are the most. Well, I wouldn't say we're the most interested, community in Southampton Roads, but we're certainly among the ones that are the most affected by it. So I'm sure our representatives will be the most vocal about what's happening. Go ahead.
One of the things I'm excited for is that this isn't waiting until 2050.
Yep.
Or saying we're going to start in like 10 years. It's next year. They have a plan to put something in place next year, and that's what we really need. We need action right now, and not 10 years from now. And it's certainly not 2050. That's way too late. So I'm really excited about the timeline of it getting. I've read that we have. Well, at the time I had read we had 18 months to get a plan in place, and now we have about a year to have a plan in place for preventing the CO2 level rise. So I think this is good to be getting done right now. And if it doesn't pass, it'd be really a shame.
I think the earlier we get started taking carbon out, the easier it's going to be to stay under a 2-degree rise if we can, and keep the sea level rise in this area from just killing Norfolk. I mean,
you bring up a good point, because if not now, next year might be too late.
Next year is too late. I live in an area that's supposedly not a flood zone.
Right.
And my backyard floods even when a light drizzle happens. So imagine how bad that's going to be next year and the year after that. And it's January, and it feels like a nice spring day outside.
Right. Last time I checked, this is the 10 degrees above average. This month has been 10 degrees above average. And that is, like you said, like my husband's washing the car right now, and he's really excited about that, and I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
This is not right.
And I feel like seeing what's happening in Australia is
Yeah.
giving some people a wake-up call. Like, this is not 20 years from now. This could be this summer when
Yeah.
we start seeing
That's
that
the
here.
nightmare. I saw
I mean-
people they had to jump off of a pier and wade in the water because the fire was coming to the shore. And what do you do when you're standing between the Chesapeake Bay and a brush fire? Like what
Yeah.
do you do? Oh my God, that scared me.